Well, hello and welcome to the TGIF trade right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Here's what's coming up. We get expectations as the new leadership takes office at Access Holdings today. And Egypt increases gas production as 2 new West Delta wells go online. Plus, Zimbabwe's trade deficit drops 94.5% in July. It's good to have you join us. I'm Ladi Williams. Let's get a quick check on what's playing out with the commodity markets now. We see oil prices, still struggling at this point. $68.05, a bigger 0.83% drop there for Brent crude. WTI crude still holding on to that $64 level. We're down 0.63%, so we're seeing weakness there. That's for the Friday trade. And we see President Donald Trump wasn't happy with what learned that Russia attacked Ukraine with missiles and drones overnight. So we're seeing geopolitics again driving sentiment right there in the oil market. Let's get a check on metals now. Let's see what's playing out with gold. We see it, even with all that uncertainty, gold is still under pressure. $3,414 for spot gold. U.S. gold futures, that's down 0.1%. Spot silver, a big 0.48% drop. When you see platinum, also down 0.93%. The lone gainer right there, trying to reestablish above that $1,000 per ounce level, palladium, 0.79% up there. And definitely investors watching out for what's playing out there when it comes to geopolitics and sentiments about what Trump is going to do next, especially with Ukraine and Russia. But let's pivot now to financial services and dive straight into the markets. We're diving into the critical leadership transition unfolding in Nigeria's financial sector. We see Mr. Innocent Ike has been named the substantive group managing director and CEO of Access Holdings PLC, effective August 29, 2025, which is today. So join us to unpack what investors should be looking at as Mr. Olufemi Aweyemi is the chairman, ProShare, joining me via Zoom. Great to have you on the show, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So what does Mr. Innocent Ike's appointment, as the permanent or substantive JMD CEO, what does that signal for Access Holdings, strategic direction, especially compared to the, interim era under Bolaji Agbede?
Well, there is no significant changes. It's basically having the right person that meets the regulatory requirements in terms of who is qualified to be an MD of a financial holdco company. And Access Bank must have gotten it very right in finding someone who was someone with a proven experience, who had been a critical part of the bank at its initial stage, to come in and plug their hole in helping them meet their compliance requirements. Innocent Ike is not an unknown quantity. If there's any other thing, he's a well-regarded fellow within the profession. Someone I have had the pleasure and the privilege of interacting with while he was the MD of Polaris Bank, where he developed and allowed the launching of one of the most powerful digital banking platforms we have. But not just that, he has been consistent up to the time when he was general manager in the Access Bank, and consistently conducted himself across. So what really happened is that I believe that Access Bank needed it with compliance, stipulation, regulations. They were able.
All right, so, definitely did mention, about his stint at Polaris Bank, launching the platform, Volte. How might his, digital transformation experience, how do you see that influencing Access Holdings? network. The network's not working, this time. But, definitely we had Mr. Femi Awoyemi there trying to unpack what to expect, with this new leadership at Access Holdings PLC. Definitely, we've been seeing a lot of reactions, so far. I believe my producer is telling me that he's back now. So, sir, try and finish up your thoughts there. I know we lost you for a moment.
No, you were talking about how would this position help in terms of the digital transformation.
Yes, please.
Well, you understand that Access Bank, directly and indirectly, has been one of the foremost leaders in terms of digital banking in Nigeria, both from its hub, which he started very early at the initiation stage, in terms of its collaborations, and some of the products we have available today were an outcome of some of those initiatives that they've done. I think Innocent has just come back home to a group of people where their value system in terms of what the market needs and where it needs to go is on point. And he will just be taking off from what Bolaji Agbede, the outgoing acting MD, had done. Look, it's a cliche to say that one is trying to make it look as if all is well. No, the bank, all is well, truly. And that Access Bank had got it right in getting this appointment in place. If there are specific questions, I will answer. But I will say it honestly, given what I've done and how critical I've been in this market, is that I'm very confident that Innocent Ike would complement the real values and all the hard work that Access Bank has put in place to ensure that the market is done. In terms of leadership, Innocent Ike has proven it what it was in a previous bank. In terms of experience and knowledge of how Access Bank works, he rose up to the level of general manager. He's a qualified professional in about 4 different categories. He's also my senior in 1 or 2 categories, so I know him very well. So I believe that Access Bank actually did itself a great favor in making sure that in complying with the CBN rules, they got this very right. And it will be a seamless transition. And I think that is one of the most important things that they like. And don't forget that Bolaji Agbede will still be on board. Her steady hands has been very critical in what has happened, managing a very significant period within the last 2 years, the last 18 months. It has been very important. And so I think concerning Access Bank, there is really no concern there.
Right. Talking about, concern, how do you think his appointment will impact, investor confidence, governance perceptions, especially in light of, some of the issues like the rights issues and structural reshaping, of the holding company?
No, the best chance in the... Okay, so I think there has been a challenge with people not understanding the difference between how the holding company is structured and then how the bank is structured. All the best hands that have built value for the bank are still in the bank. We have the very well-regarded Roosevelt still there managing the bank. We have very competent people in different positions still there. And you can see that in this transition, which is one of the most unique ones, whereby the acting MD stepped down and still retains one of the most critical offices in terms of business support, and then allows a new person to come in and conduct the affairs. No, there should be no concern concerning Access Bank. In actual fact, I proceed to say that what Access Bank has done, as usual, is that they are creating a model where the concern would come in for anybody who is ultra critical like ourselves would be like, we just want to see how we can crystallize the new plan that was developed by the board, which was released earlier this year, which will be actualized. I felt that what we were going to discuss was the issues concerning other things about the bank. But if this is the issue, I do not think there are investor concerns. And you can see the markets totally just understood it because the process was very thorough. I think we are just reacting to the announcements. The process has been very thorough.
Right. I guess we can expect, knee-jerk reactions, at this point. But, thank you so much. We'll still keep tracking to see his leadership and, what, portends, for the financial services sector in Nigeria. Thank you so much, Mr. Olufemi Awem. He's the chairman, ProShare. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, let's get a check now what's playing out in Zimbabwe. You see the external trade position. You saw a dramatic improvement in July with the nation's goods trade deficit dropping by 94.5% to just about $8.7 million. In a statement, the Zimbabwe National Statistics Agency said the turnaround from a June deficit of $158 million was attributed to a significant surge in exports. Zimstat detailed the robust performance of Zimbabwe's export sector. The export boom was primarily driven by a handful of key commodities there. All right, let's flip over and see what's playing out in the markets that we track now. Let's see what's happening on the NGX and the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. There we see it 8 basis points, but yeah, still a struggle right there to hold on to that 140,000 level. That's for the NGX. Johannesburg Stock Exchange at intraday 0.28% down. Other markets we track, I believe the EGX 30, that should be close today, I believe, 35,000, 0.14%. And the Nairobi Stock Exchange resuming in positive territory for the Thursday trade, 0.28%. Let's flip over to other markets that we track now. Let's see what's playing up in the Gulf region. We see it's still a struggle there, but the UAE looking much better, but still not convincing for the, that's the Abu Dhabi index. Let's flip over to Saudi Arabia and Qatar now. We see the Tadawul close 0.70%. That's the close today, 0.99%. That was yesterday's close, 11,226 points. Let's flip over to the U.S. markets now. We see, the pressure is still there. Dow Jones Industrial Average Futures, 0.32% down. The NASDAQ, tech-heavy NASDAQ, 0.50%. But let's get a summary of yesterday's close now from our correspondent, Maria Bird.
The U.S. stock market closed in the green on Thursday, as the Dow Jones was slightly up at 0.17%. The S&P 500 was also up at 0.33%, and the heavy tech NASDAQ led the day at 0.47% up. Many investors watched to see how the U.S. economy responds over the next few days and weeks ahead. There is much hope that we could see a stronger marketplace in the next few months.
All right, thank you so much, Amira, for giving us the close there. We'll definitely be waiting to see how markets continue to play right there in the U.S. But let's pivot now to another conversation on, product designing. We see the art and impact of human-centered product design in Africa. We'll see the approach that prioritizes people's lived experiences, cultural context and local realities of one-size-fits-all solutions, from tech innovations that respect rural infrastructure constraints to fintech platforms that adapt to everyday financial behaviors. We see designers there having to, step up their game to make it happen. We have Epaphras Delabi, is a product designer, joining me via Zoom. Great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
So, talk to me about, human-centered product design. What does that, really mean, and how does that help businesses?
All right, thank you. When we talk about human-centered product design, especially for Africa, so what we are thinking about is to, start to think about how people's lived realities can be, expressed. And many of the designs framework we've studied globally, assumes that, global, when we talk about Europe or, outside Nigeria or Africa, well, we have stable internet, consistent electricity, and a fairly high level of digital literacy. But in Africa, that is not the baseline, because when we design, we put into consideration consideration the Africa, context, and that is designing or building for unreliable power, building also for looking at costs, reducing costs, because it might be expensive, but we need to reduce the cost of especially for data. So also, we also want to build, even for users that may be accessing the internet for the very first time. So instead of designing something that is sophisticated, So we might, go into the marketplace, go into that motor park, go into the classrooms, and sit with people who actually will be using the product. So whether that's a trader that is managing inventory on a phone, or a young graduate trying to send money home from city, those insights will shape the design. So I would say it means designing for inclusion. So, and that is we're respecting the constraints, we're respecting the culture and the creativity of people who will live with that product every single day.
Right, yeah. But can you share like a real example, where design directly solved a problem, for Nigerian or African users of product?
All right. So while working on a fintech product tailored for Nigeria users, we discovered that many people face challenges completing onboarding, processes because, number one, I've mentioned that before, because of the unreliable internet and complexity of the KYC, that is the Know Your Customer requirements. So instead of simply replicating the Western style of onboarding flow, so there is need for us to redesign the process with the local context in mind. We are really thinking about solutions here. So the first is to introduce a progressive onboarding system whereby users could start with just maybe a phone number and minimum little details, then gradually unlock more features as they submit additional verification. So we discovered over time that the drop-off rate was reduced. And because users weren't overwhelmed with long forms, how to fill in that, much thing for their registration. So the second thing is we optimize the app to work seamlessly in low bandwidth environment by reducing heavy graphics. So, so that there will be speed, and that is what we do for impact. So the impact is very clear. So the onboarding completion, increased, and customer support tickets, when they send inquiries, that dropped, that reduced. So, but most importantly, we saw a higher level of trust because from the user's perspective, they want to enjoy whatever product you are pushing to them.
Right,
so the
because
experience.
It's one thing to put out a product, but can people use it?
Exactly,
at this point,
exactly.
do you make it in a way where it's easily understandable to navigate that app? Because there are a couple of apps out there. Some are quite difficult to operate. But what local factors, like culture, infrastructure, or digital literacy, what do you think? How do you think that shapes how you go about designing some of these products?
So those three factors you've mentioned, I see them to be like the three big factors that could help designers. When we design, we think about the culture. So we don't want to leave the fact that we are trying to be, we are trying to replicate or trying to see what other designers or other product look like. But the context of the culture should not be removed. So culture is critical because people's trust in products often comes from the community. So a recommendation from a friend or a local agent, those things carry weight more than an online advertisement. So if we are designing a financial product, for instance, you have to embed features that reflect that referral system.
Okay.
When you say, when you refer a person, you get a percentage. So that trust, that word of mouth will move, will help the product, scale. So that's the culture part. So when we talk about infrastructure, which is the second one, we cannot just assume steady electricity. And I mentioned before, so we have to make sure that whatever design or whatever product we are pushing out has to be lightweighted. So It shouldn't be too heavy for people to consume. It shouldn't be too heavy for people to use. So
exactly.
If people, So
you don't want an app that's over how many gig, to download, and you finish all your data before you finish downloading, that app. But thank you so much. Definitely we'll keep tracking to see how you designers navigate all of these issues to make products, user-friendly. Thank you so much, Epaphras Adelabi.
Thank you.
As a product designer joining me from the UK advisor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to flip over now to see what's playing out in the markets in Europe. Definitely, Lars has been giving us all the details this week. I don't know if we'll see any change for the TGIF trade. Hello, Lars. Great to have you.
Yeah, good to be with you. How you doing, Ladi?
I'm fine. I'm in the TGIF mood right now, but are investors over there in that mood right now?
Yeah, you know what, we're seeing the markets down here a little bit on Friday, but I got at least some good news. We finally got some data at least to go by. Ladi, we've talked all week about how there is no guidance for markets right now. So finally on Friday here, we are getting something. Unfortunately, it's not all great. Let's have a look at labor markets first. Unemployment here up slightly. Unemployment rate taken up to 6.5%. Retail sales down 1%, and that is a little problematic. It very much looks like people are hesitant to open their wallets all too wide, which of course is not really surprising if you see this in context to that weaker labor market and the general economic uncertainty. So we do have some data out. Unfortunately, it's not very good, and the DAX is moving slightly down, but not too much.
Well, how are other industries looking, from the data you've pointed out?
Well, yeah, we got a little bit of industrial data out as well. Mostly it comes from the car sector. Interesting, of course, because it's generally seen as a backbone of Germany's economy, and sales we here in the EU have suddenly grown by an impressive 7.5%. That's really good. Hybrids up strongly, electric vehicles up strongly. And within Europe, all the European car makers, the German companies did extremely well, with Volkswagen strengthening its lead in the field. BMW, Mercedes up at all as well here. Very, very strong. Problems, of course, still remain for that business on all the markets outside the EU, and that, of course, is mostly China as well as the United States, where German cars are now facing these higher tariffs.
All right, thank you so much, Lars. Definitely all eyes now on what's going to play out with these markets in September. Thank you so much, Lars Holter.
Thank you, Ladi. Have a nice weekend.
You too. All right, let's get a check now what's playing out in the crypto space. At this point, we did see, Bitcoin trying to make a comeback this week after, some of the hammering there. But let's look at some of the headlines now. We see crypto exchanges, that's Kraken, HTX, KuCoin, planning to list. That's the controversial coin there, World Liberty Financial. That's the one linked to President Donald Trump and his sons there. So this top exchange is looking at, listing them. So I'm sure traders will be waiting eagerly. Now we see American Bitcoin. They're eyeing a NASDAQ debut. That's a Bitcoin mining company right there in the U.S. They're looking at listing on the tech-heavy NASDAQ. So investors will be keeping an eye on that. Then USDT, they've launched on the Bitcoin network at this point. That's a stable coin, one of the biggest stable coins in the world. At this point, USDT. So you have different chains with USDT. Solana has also a chain there for USDT. So they're exploring. That's the Bitcoin network. So you have USDT traded right there. So that's the much we can take today for the TGIF trade. Definitely all eyes on September. And definitely you need to keep your eyes on our show so you can know where to stash money. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye for now.